Okay,
Okay,
good.
Welcome everybody to the Zoom webinar for property investments, both in the UK here and in Nigeria, particularly in Anambra State. I'm going to quickly go straight to Barrister Godwin Okri because he has a lot to share with us today. So our time is very, very limited. We don't want to waste any time. So we're gonna keep it, African time. I don't want to call it English time because it means that we are giving superiority to English. So we are saying we are starting the new refined African time. We say 6 is 6. Thank you. So over to you, Barrister Godwin.
My pleasure. Thank you. So now, can you? I think you need to. What do I do? Because I need to.
You want to share your screen?
I want to share my screen. Yes.
Okay.
In the middle.
When you want to share your screen, if you look below you at the middle.
Okay, share. Okay,
share
yeah.
Screen. Yeah. Then you can.
I do it. Oh, so I do share. Sorry. Okay, just 1 second. It's not. Can you all see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just bear with me 1 second. All right, so can you all see the screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can.
Okay, so it says the Menvo Limited Business Unit. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'll just spend just 2 minutes. My name is Godwin Okri. I'm a barrister and a property investment consultant, CEO for the company Menvo Limited, which is a property investment company. It's also an asset management company. I also run a TV show called the Okri Property Show, and we're doing a script for the BBC, which is due to come out next September, called The Millennia Climbing the Property Ladder. And of course, I've written a book called Investing in Properties with Strategy, and that sold over 1 million copies in the UK alone. So I am all things properties, and I want to deal with property as a way of wealth creation for the diasporans. So I've titled this Diaspora Property Investment, the Gateway to Economic Prosperity. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you can do it. Barrister, can I just a point of order? I think your position, the light behind you is too strong, so we cannot see your face.
Oh, the light is too strong.
Yeah, so when you back the light, if it's not coming to your face, it becomes too dark to see you.
Okay. Right.
Exactly. That is much better. You know,
Better.
you cannot keep your asset away. You know.
Thank you, Sam. You always come with wisdom. I've always learned a great deal from you, Sam. Wonderful.
Yeah, good. No, I think it's much better.
Lawson,
we can see you now. Yeah.
Israel, I could see you, Israel. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Okay, so now property investment is an amazing way of wealth creation. In the UK, there are 625,000 millionaires. In Nigeria, there are 316,000 millionaires. And in Ghana, there are 220,000 millionaires. And about 40% of them made their money in real estate. It doesn't surprise me. So just before I go into properties, I think it's important to look at economics and the economic landscapes in the UK and of course in Nigeria. For example, the residential property in the UK, the total value of every single residential home in the UK, every single home, including where you are in Israel and where you are, Sam, and where you are, Mark, all of those properties together is worth 608 trillion pounds. In Nigeria, it's worth about 4.7 trillion naira. So you could see that just residential property, there's a great deal of money in residential property by reason of its value. Those employed in the private rental sector, so the buy-to-let landlords are about 2 million in the UK, and their asset is worth about 2 trillion pounds. So that's what we're talking about, you know. So in terms of numbers, there are only 2 million buy-to-let investors in the whole of the UK, and their asset is worth 2 trillion pounds. And the kind of income they generate, we in the buy-to-let sector, we generate about 54 billion pounds annually in rental income. So you can see that's a sizable amount of money. So in terms of, income, the real estate market is really it. There's around 5.3 million private rental sectors. So 5.3 million tenants in the rental sector, in the private rental sector here in the UK. I think my phone is going. I'm not sure if, just 1 second. James, I'm in. Thank you, I'm in, thanks. Okay, so let's just go very quickly. We're still on the basis why the real estate market is where money is at the moment. But let me just say a little bit about the coronavirus and the post-corona economics. At the moment, as at today, GDP has shrunk by 20% as in April because of no activities. So all the business are shut down, so there's no activity. The government is borrowing and spending. They've borrowed 1.95 trillion pounds at the moment because of the furlough scheme. So all of that is going to have an effect, because now it's going to affect property price. If GDP shrinks, property price will drop. And when property price drop, seasoned investor steps in, because as property price drop, you are picking properties well below market value on a BMV basis. So the current economics tells you that this is the best time to invest in properties. Let's just look at the supply side of property very quickly, and then I'll give you the strategies. In the supply side, in the UK at the moment, we need 300,000 homes annually to date. And we're only building 150,000. We're building 50% of the homes that we need. So if you're in real estate, you're going to have tenants, that is, because there's a demand for property. In Nigeria, there's 17 million housing shortage in Nigeria at the moment. So you could see that property is needed, but here in the UK, and of course in Nigeria, and we're only building 150,000 homes annually. So if you go into properties or you own properties, you are walking into wealth. It is no wonder that 40% of the 625,000 millionaires are property investors. It doesn't surprise me. Look at the numbers. So that's where we are at the moment. So that's the basic economic fundamentals. If you just look at, just very quickly, neoclassical economists, they've used the supply and demand price sensitivity to test the water in the real estate market. And neoclassical economists, they say that the supply of property is fixed because it takes time to build properties. So the supply of property is fixed, but the demand of property is constantly in flux. You know, there are foreigners coming into the country, there's more divorces, there are more people who need houses, single family. So there's a huge demand for property as against the backlog of a fixed property. So because of the huge demand, prices go up from P1 to P2. You could see in D1, let's say last year's D1, because of increase in population, more single families, more divorce, more foreigners coming in, and all the rest of it, demand increases. And as demand increases for property, it pushes prices up. And that's why the average property price today in the UK is £425,000. In Nigeria, the average property is 35 million naira. The average wage is 30,000 naira per month in Nigeria. The average wage here is around about the 25 to 30,000 pounds, whilst the average property price is 450,000. So you could see the dichotomy. So anyone who could enter the property market would control the market because that's a product that is required. So neoclassical economics has made it very, very, very clear for us. So now, against this background, let's now look at the secret weapon of wealth creation. How do you make money in properties? What are those strategies? How is the magical formula to make money in properties? How is it that 40% of the 625,000 millionaires made money in real estate? What's that strategy? I will tell you. Let's first of all deal with council tenant. If you're a council tenant, for those of you who are council tenants, and you've lived in your council tenancy for 3 or more years, the Housing Act allows you to buy your property at 35% below market value if it's a flat, or 50% below market value if it's a house, if it's a flat. If it's a house, it's 35% below market value. If it's a house, if it's a flat, it's 50% below market value. So imagine if you buy, say a house is £100,000 and you're buying at £50,000. Instantly, your profit is 50,000. Because if you buy at 50,000 and you sell at 100,000, you walk away with 50,000 pounds. So buying your council flat with that strategy will generate you funds. Now let's move into the private sector. Another way in which you could make money in real estate is buying repossessed properties. We have a list of repossessed properties at the moment because of our links to the banks. So how do you what are repossessed properties? Now, repossessed properties are those properties where owners have taken a mortgage and they fail to comply with the terms of that mortgage, and the bank have gone to the county court to repossess that property. To date, there's about 6,000 repossessed properties to date. In 2008, there was 4,580 repossessed properties. So if you have a strategy to buy repossessed property, that strategy would generate you wealth. Absolutely would generate you wealth. We did a client of mine, and I'm going to show you some of the properties that we've sold as a repossessed property. And you'll see that knowing how to buy those properties, knowing the strategy to get in those properties will get you your wealth well below market value. So now, where can you find repossessed properties? Where can you get them from? You could come to us. Hello, is anyone asking questions?
No, carry on.
Okay, so one way in which you could get repossessed properties is by auctions. If you go to auctions, you could get repossessed properties from auctions. From word of mouth, you can get repossessed properties. We, from Memvo Limited, we have a list of properties from various banks that we deal with that you could buy at 30 to 40% below market value. We just sold one in Chelsea, a £2.5 million property. We sold it at £950,000. £2.5 million property because it's a repossessed properties. I have 2 or 3 repossessed properties in Thamesmead at the moment. I got offer on one of them and one is still available. One is a freehold property, one is a leasehold property. So technically, knowing how to buy those properties, knowing how to hedge with those properties would definitely create wealth for you. Okay, there are some websites where you could go to, where you could get repossessed properties. If you call me, I'll give you my details. I've got a number of websites where you could go to, where you could get repossessed properties. If you know there's a number of solicitors that deal with banks and that go into the court and do litigation work and repossess properties. If you have a link with those banks, you could get those repossessed properties well below market value. But of course, you could come to us, and of course, we'll get you those repossessed properties. Another way in which you could create wealth is by dealing with distressed sellers. Any seller who is trying to relocate or who's facing a divorce is a distressed seller. Or anyone who wants to downsize. If they have a 4-bedroom property and they're trying to downsize into a 2-bedroom property, well, because they have that propensity that they want to downsize, that makes them a motivated seller. And you could negotiate with them and of course buy those properties below market value. People sell their properties because of redundancy. Now look at the economy today. it has shrunk. GDP in England has shrunk by 20% because there's no activity. It will not be long before we're going to have distressed sellers. It will not be long before we're going to have repossessed properties. So this is the time. This is the time to buy those properties. And of course, we're going to get those properties for you. If you want distressed properties, just come to us and we'll get them for you. So there's distressed sellers, there's distressed properties, properties that need renovation. There are a lot of properties that need renovation. You could buy those properties below market value. Properties that suffer from flooding are amazing properties to buy because you could rectify it. A good builder could rectify a flooding problem. A good builder could rectify a problem suffering from a property suffering from subsidence. So if you have a property and it's got subsidence, buy those properties below market value. Get your builders in and rectify it. We have excellent builders that could do that. So you could buy at 50% below market value, do it up and sell and walk away with 100,000, 50,000 pounds. That's the trick. For example, there are empty properties in the UK at the moment. Buy those empty properties. We have a list of these properties. At the end of this seminar, I'll give you my details. And of course, I'll send you those lists. And I'll also, in the next slide, I'll tell you how we're going to deal with funding. How could you raise funding to buy these properties? We'll deal with all of that straight away. And then, of course, another way in which you could create wealth is through the real estate investment trust. It's called REITs. Now, a real estate investment trust, these are companies that float in the stock market. Now, by law, they are allowed to use all the monies from shareholders to invest in properties. They're not allowed to buy and sell. They're allowed to buy properties and rent it out. So REIT companies, they buy in central London. They buy offices, shopping malls. So you could buy in central London by spending £5,000, £10,000, £20,000, buying shares in the REITs company. So buy shares in REITs, and then as the value of the property go up, the value of your shares go up, and it's very liquid. You could sell your shares if you want, or you could remortgage your shares, because shares is almost dealt to. It's as if you bought part of that property, even though you're buying in shares. So REIT is a way in which you could buy properties below market value when you're buying in central London, you're buying in Canary Wharf, you're buying in all those top centers, shopping malls. So you're buying REITs. There are about 6,000 REITs at the moment in the UK. In Nigeria, there's only 3 REITs in the whole of Nigeria. In the UK, there are about 5,000 to 6,000 REITs. So one way in which you could buy properties below market value and create your wealth is to invest in the REIT market. An advantage is that if you buy in the REIT market, you only pay dividend tax. You do not pay corporation tax, and you do not pay capital gains tax. You only pay dividends tax, and you keep your profit as a result. We have a list of REIT properties. If you want to buy, you could invest £1,000 into properties. You own a property for £1,000. You own Central London for £1,000. You own Central London for £2,000, going through the REIT process. So all of that is a key way in which you create wealth. So even if you don't have millions of pounds, you could still make money in real estate. That's what I'm trying to say. And then finally, HMO. Now, HMO is housed in multiple occupation. Under the Housing Act, if you have 3 or more tenants living in a house of 2 or more households, it is known as HMO. For a house to be a HMO, you have to have 3 bed seats, 3 or more bed seats, where they share both a toilet or they share a kitchen. The moment they share toilet or kitchen, that 3 bed seat is HMO. The advantage of investing in HMO is that you have 3 or more sources of income coming in. Instead of investing in one property, you have one property with 3 or more tenants, all paying in money. If you have students, so you could buy HMO very close to universities like Sheffield, Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool. These are top HMO areas where you could buy below market value, and you're having multiple streams of income coming into your coffers. So HMO is another way of wealth creation. Again, if you want to invest in HMO, because of time, I have to rush through. So because of time, speak to me. We've got a list of HMOs. You would need to, if it's 6 or more occupant, you would need a license from a local authority. where the property is located, you'd need a license. It's unlawful to operate a HMO without a license. It's about £20,000 fine or a criminal offense. So you'd need a license. We could help you with your license. And of course, the average rent of HMO is about between £2,000 to £3,000 a week. £2,000 or £3,000 a week. That's about £6,000 monthly that you could make in HMO, home in multiple occupation. So again, that's another way in which you could create wealth. So you could, if you're a council tenant, you buy a council property, you buy below market value, or if you're a private investor, you could buy repossessed properties. We could help you with that. You could buy from distressed sellers. You could buy distressed properties that has legal problem. Properties where if you're buying a leasehold and the freeholder cannot be found, that's a distressed property. You could buy that below market value, rectify it, and sell at a high price and walk away with thousands of pounds. You could go into REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust, buy shares, £2,000, £3,000 to get your REIT shares. And then as the value of this property go up, so does the value of your REIT. And of course, you make money. Or you could buy HMO. So that's basically how you could raise money. This is one HMO we have in Manchester at the moment. You could see it's four. It's got 1, 2, 3. It's a 4-bed set, and my client is getting £3,500 a week. Now he bought this property at £280,000, so he's getting well over 27% yield. So HMO is a magnificent opportunity to make money. You could also buy one bedroom. You could buy a 1-bedroom. This one, I'll show you 1-bedroom here that we. There's a 1-bedroom flat that we sold for £15,000 in Walkstop, which is very close to Sheffield. £15,000. The tenant is getting £250 a month. So that gives you £250 a month. That gives you around about the 11% yield. So just learn to buy below market value. You can see, look at the kitchen. That's the bathroom. Nothing to do. The strategy is buying below market value. Look at the car park. And that's 25 Lancaster Gardens in Walksop, just about 30 minutes from Sheffield. So that's basically that. Now, let me now quickly turn to how do you raise money? I have all this repossession. How can I buy it? Where would I get the money from? The Real Estate Investment Trust, REIT. Where would I get the money for REIT? I see someone who's selling a distressed properties. How can I get money to buy these distressed properties so I could make money in real estate? What's the strategy? I'll tell you. Let's first of all deal with the basic ones first. You could get a mortgage. Now, there are 2 types of mortgage. There's the buy-to-let mortgage, and then of course, there's a residential mortgage, first-time buyer mortgage. So let's deal with the buy-to-let mortgage first. If you have a good credit score of more than 800, if your credit score is bad, just come to me, we'll rectify it for you. We'll rectify your credit score. But if you have a good credit score and you want to be a landlord, you could get a mortgage. Now, the rules to get a mortgage is that before the bank could give you a mortgage, the interest credit ratio, called the ICR, must be 145%. Now, what that means is that the house that you want to buy, the bank would say to you, what is the rent that you're going to get in that property? So let's say the rent is £100 a month, for argument's sake. So say the rent is £100 a month, and the mortgage is £20 a month. That means that the rent is more than 145 times the interest you have to pay towards a mortgage. So if the rent is £100, if the rent is £100, if the interest is £100, the rent has to be £145. So if the interest that you're paying is £100 per month, the rent has to be £145 a month. So that's why, so that if there's a movement of the interest rate, your rent will be able to cover that interest. The reason is because of the financial crisis we had in 2008. So the bank is saying that before we could give you a mortgage, your rent should more than cover the interest mortgage you have to pay. And that's known as ICR. In addition, the bank use a hypothetical interest rate of 5.5%. So the bank will say to you that we know that interest rate is 2% now, or 3.5%. Barclays Bank is doing at 3%. HSBC is doing at 2.8%. But the bank would say to you, we are going to assume that the interest is 5.5%. At 5.5%, would you be able to pay this mortgage? If the answer is yes, we'll give you a mortgage. If the answer is no, we're not going to give you a mortgage. So the rent that you get in the property determines whether you get the mortgage, if you're a landlord. So if you're going to buy a property, ask yourself, what is the rent I'm going to get? You have to get the rent figures first before you go and apply for a mortgage, because the rent is what the bank would use to determine whether they will give you a mortgage. And that's known as an ICR. Okay? If you're a first-time buyer, it's a different kind of test. If you're a first-time buyer in the UK and you want to get a mortgage, the bank would say to you, what is your income? Your income have to be the mortgage must not be more than 4.5 times your income. So if your income is £100,000 a year, just for argument's sake, so let's say your income is £100,000 a year, you will not be able, you get no more than £450,000 mortgage. So the mortgage you get is no more than 4.5 times your income if you're a first-time buyer. So ask yourself the question, what is my income? And then times it by 4.5 times. That's the maximum mortgage you're going to get for first-time buyer. All right? And you must show a minimum income of £25,000. If you have less than 25,000, you're going to struggle to get a mortgage. So now, so that's for in the UK. But let me just quickly touch Nigeria very quickly, if you guys don't mind. I'm just going to quickly change my screen. Quickly, I'll come back to that. Let's just, okay. Now, in Nigeria, the mortgage system in Nigeria is pretty different. In Nigeria, you could get a mortgage from the National Housing Funds. Now, the National Housing Funds could give you a maximum mortgage of 15 million naira if you're based in Nigeria for 25 years, from 25 to 30 years. If you're getting a mortgage of 5 million, you don't need a deposit. But if you're getting more than 5 million, you have to put a 10 to 20% deposit down, and the bank will give you the balance. The maximum mortgage you're going to get in Nigeria from the National Housing Fund is no more than 15 million. So if you're going to Lekki, where the average property price is 35 million, you get 15 million, and you have to bring your 15 million. You have to bring 20 million of your own cash to buy the property, right? To be eligible for the National Housing Funds, you have to be 18 years and above. You have to contribute 2.5% of your monthly income for more than 6 months for you to get the mortgage from the National Housing Fund. And of course, you have to show that you have regular income coming in. If you don't want to go to the National Housing Funds for a mortgage in Nigeria, you could go to the commercial banks. Like Zenith Bank could give you a mortgage. Now, the banks in Nigeria are now required by law to give everyone a mortgage. Now, the CBN has imposed a fine on every bank that refuses to give a loan. And I think the fine right now is about $4 billion. If they don't give a loan, they could be fined $4 billion. So the banks in Nigeria are keen. If you want to buy in Nigeria, the banks are now keen to give you a loan because the CBN has imposed that condition on them. So that's for that on mortgage. And let's now quickly go back to other ways in which you could raise funds. Okay, you could raise funds from your savings, from family, from friends. If you're a first-time buyer, the government is going to give you money under the Help to Save scheme. So for every £1,200 you save, the government will give you £600. And if you save another 1,200, government will give you £600 under the Help to Buy scheme. So that's another way in which you can raise funds. There's also the Help to Buy scheme, where again the government gives you funds. You know, if you open an ISA, the government will contribute towards the savings that you put into the ISA. There's also the lifetime ISA. For every £4,000 you save, the government will give you £1,000. So for every £4,000 you save, the government will give you £1,000 up to £20,000 if you're a first-time buyer. There's equity loan. Again, this is for first-time buyer. If you're a first-time buyer, the government will give you interest-free loan for 5 years. So 20% of the purchase price, 20% of the purchase price, the government will give you.
I said, I never did serve me when the house. You know, they hear motor. I beg, I walk up. You know, they hear can.
Mute your call now. Someone that is talking, can you mute your call? Please, can you mute your call? Please mute your call. Sorry. Mute your call. Thank you.
I'm hoping.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, carry on, carry on.
Oh, okay, you could, let me see, I think I'm receiving a call here. Okay, can you hear me now? Benson,
Yes,
can
we
you
can
hear
hear
me?
you.
I can hear you. Yeah, carry on.
Very good. Now, again, for first-time buyer, you're going to have equity loan where the government will give you interest-free loan for 5 years. So all of that is another way in which you could generate monies to invest in real estate. Okay, I think just 1 second. Okay. Another way in which you could raise funds is by joint venture. So joint venture is a way in which you bring friends together. So you bring 20,000, another friend brings 30,000, another one brings 40,000, and you put your funds together and invest in properties. That process is known as joint venture. There is the English law that governs joint venture. So I need to just warn you how that works. It's a good way to buy properties, but there's a law. And the law says that if you join your income with people who you do not know, who are not your friends or family, then that would be unlawful unless, of course, you form a company and they buy shares in that company. Or if you don't know them, but you all contribute in doing the work. So everyone brings money and everyone is involved in the decision-making process, that's allowable. But you can't raise money from people you don't know in your name, call it joint venture and start buying properties. It's unlawful, it's a criminal offense, okay? You only do joint venture with friends and family that you know. And that's one way in which you could raise funds and invest in properties. Peer-to-peer crowdfunding and bridging loan is another way. Crowdfunding, there's a new way in which funds are raised now, where the companies called crowdfunding companies, where they go to people and people lend these companies money. And this company then raise all this money and lend it out to investors to invest in properties. And that's known as crowdfunding. There's the famous one is Lend to Invest. Lend to Invest is a big crowdfunding in the UK at the moment. And they just lend out to people. So if you have a bad credit, and if the bank would not give you a mortgage, don't worry. Crowdfunders will give you a mortgage, even if you have a bad credit score. Bridging loan companies will give you a mortgage, even if you have a bad credit score, to invest in properties. Or you could do peer-to-peer. Now, peer-to-peer is where your friends have money. There's some people who have money, they don't want to invest in properties. You could enter into joint venture with them, take their money and invest in it. And that's known as peer-to-peer, right? So that's another way in which you could raise funds to invest in properties. Let me now tell you about a fundamental, another new way to invest in properties, to raise funds is novation. Novation is a crafty way to raise funds, a really crafty way. And the way innovation works is that if you know somebody who's got a mortgage, they've got a house, they've got a mortgage, and the property is about to be repossessed. You could go to the person and say to them, let's do innovation whereby I step into your shoes. I take over the mortgage from you and you step out of the mortgage. It's known as innovation. It's known as a switch. So you switch and you become the mortgagor and the person comes out. So in other words, you're owning property without putting any money down in your pocket. And that's not, so we could draft the innovation. It's a contractual agreement. We could draft it for you as lawyers. We could draft the innovation agreement for you. And it's a way in which, again, you could acquire properties with no monies down. That's a strategy that you could use. Another fundamental way is by SPV, Special Purpose Vehicle. That's a crafty way to raise funds. It's a very fundamental way. And SPV under the Section 17 is a special purpose vehicle where it's a company just for properties. You can't form the company and use it for properties and use it for oil and gas. And no, it's not. It's just primarily for companies. It's just primarily for investing in properties. Now, the trick here is that if you create an SPV, you could sell shares to people, and people will buy shares into your company. And when they buy shares, you collect that monies from selling out shares, from share allocation. You then use that money to invest in properties. So SPV is a strategic way in which you could buy properties really without using any of your funds. But you got to we could create an SPV for you, and you could float it, and of course sell shares and use those shares, the funds from these shares, to invest in properties. The advantage of SPV is that corporation tax has now been reduced from 20% to 17%. So you're paying less tax if you buy properties using SPV than if you buy it in your own name. If you buy it in your own name, you're doing the base rate. Base rate at the moment is very high. You have to look at the base rate for your taxing. But with corporation tax, it's 17%, less tax. Another advantage is that the mortgage tax relief does not apply if you're buying property in a company name. If you form a company, it's a massive advantage for you, because the law right now is that if you buy a property with a mortgage, you cannot deduct the money from your mortgage payment before you pay your tax. You pay your tax on the gross profit that you make. So before the 2017 law, it was that if you buy a property, if you own a property and you have a mortgage, you deduct the mortgage payment from your profit. You deduct the mortgage payment, and then the net income, that's what you pay your tax in. That no longer applies. If you're now buying property in your own name, the law now is that you pay tax from your gross profit, not your net profit. So you're paying more tax and your profit is being eroded. So one way to skim around that is to form a company. If you form a company, the mortgage interest relief does not apply. In other words, you could make profit from your net. You pay tax from your net profit, not from your gross. So forming a company is one way of circumventing payment of tax, and it's another way to raise funds by selling shares. So it's got two key advantages. Let's look at overage. Overage agreement is another way in which you could raise investment funds. What is an overage agreement? An overage agreement is where someone is selling property below market value, but would share the profit with you in the future. I'll give you an example. And there's a website where you could buy overage properties. What people tend to do is they have land, but they haven't got money to build on it, but they have land. So let's say the land is 100,000. The landowner will say to you, I will sell it to you for £20,000. You build on the property. When you build on the property, we share the profits of the sale. So if you don't have enough money, then buy overage transactions. So go and buy below market value property in overage transactions, get a loan to develop the land, sell it, make a profit, and share the profit with the overage owner. So overage agreement is a great way to buy properties well below market value and then share profit when you come and sell those properties. In my book, I've got websites where you could get overage transactions. So there are websites where you can get overage transactions. If you come to me, we could do overage. And overage properties you're buying at 50, 60% below market value. In London, the average property price is £425,000. That's the average property price. Under an overage agreement, you could buy in at 200,000. You could buy in at £150,000. That's the trick. Buy below market value, sell for high profit, walk away with the profit, will generate you your wealth creation in real estate. Pension, you know that since 2015, if you're over 55, you could pull out 25%. You could pull out 25% of your pension and invest in it without it being taxed. So if you have a pension, you could pull out your pension, use it to trade in property and pay it back. So that's another way in which you could raise funds. Lease option is another way in which you could raise monies in real estate. It's a no monies down. Lease option allows you to buy properties with no money in your pocket, basically. So what is lease option? A lease option is where you go to a seller of a property and you say to the seller, I want to rent this property for you. I'm going to rent this property for 5 years and my rent will go towards the deposit. And then after 5 years, you get a mortgage to pay the difference. So you rent the property. So you rent the property from the owner of the property. You then sub-rent it out to someone else. And that sub-rent would generate you income. So the rent from that income, you use it as a deposit towards buying those properties. And that allows you to buy properties with no monies down. So it's a great strategy to use. Lease option is a fantastic strategy to use to buy properties. Or you could even do a rent to rent. So you could rent a property for 5 years and then rent it out. So you could rent it from the landlord for £1,000 and rent it out for £1,200 and keep the £200 profit. So rent to rent allows you to make profit from properties without actually owning property. Okay, so that's basically in terms of raising funds. So I'm just going to pause for now and just quickly take questions, if I may. Benson, I don't know how you could do it to take questions.
I think people will just raise up their hands and then we'll take the questions from them one by one. Whoever wants to ask any question, please just raise up your hands and I can see you and then you can put your questions through. Does anyone have a question to ask?
How many people?
Let me see. I can't find my hand raised on the screen here, but anyway, can I just have a quick go, right?
Yeah, could you just tell us your name, please?
Yes, so Sam Fungo here. I specialize in property auctions. Myself and Barrister, he's spoken at quite a few of my events. By the way, Barrister, well done. Great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good stuff. Yeah, no, you mentioned about how you can raise money about the pension. I mean, I'm not sure if the SARS would actually fall into that same sort of pension release as well. If can people use SARS as well to get money out from their pensions?
Well, SARS is a special. I think with SARS, you would need an accountant to advise you on that. You know, with basic pension, with income pension, you could pull out income pensions. You could pull out any of that, but there's some that are regulated, which you might struggle with. So I think, you know, it's best to get an accountant to advise you on that. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that SARS too, especially for those that are self-employed, could be a very good way to get out some funds as well. Yeah, because that's great presentation. Yeah.
Yes, but because if you look at the pension rules that has been changed by this government, it's opened up the market now and it's allowed anyone to put. You could even pull out 80% of your pension, but you're going to be taxed at 75% base. You know, so you could use that. If you think you could make a profit, you could quickly use it, sell it, make a profit, come back and pay it back in very quickly. You know, so it opens all of that up for you. There's a variety of ways that you could use. You could even, you know, all of your assets, you could put it as part of your pension. All of your assets, you could peg it as part of your pension and it could work towards a tax advantage for you. You know, speak to your accountant and there are many myriad ways in which you could also protect yourself from paying so much tax. And that savings is wealth creation.
Barrister, I have a question. If you're done with Sam.
Yes,
yeah,
I'm done. Yes, I'm done.
Okay, Sam, thank you. So Barrister, assuming for someone that doesn't want to create a special purpose vehicle, but you already have a company, but you want to use that company to buy a buy-to-let. All right. So you want, because you know, as an individual, if you want to borrow, you need to put down 25%, but then your income has to be 25% loan to value. So if you want to use an existing company that you now trade with to now get the mortgage, how does that work?
The general rule in property investment is that it is better, the banks are reluctant to give mortgages to old companies that is in existence because they don't want to take the risk of debt, because the bank might have, the company might have other debts and other liabilities. The banks who give mortgages to SPV prefer new companies off the shelf. So the newer the company, the better the chances of you getting a mortgage. The older the company, the less chance of you getting a mortgage, because the banks right now are jittery when it comes to existing companies. So the general rule is if you want to do an SPV, just create one and get a mortgage. You're going to, it's less risk for the banks than companies that is in existence.
Okay, Barrister, I have a question too, just in this aspect as well, as a follow-up, yeah? I think, it's proper for us to make it clear that we are talking about a limited liability company.
Correct.
Not a sole trader, okay? And I would like to say that the banks as well, I found it that the banks are quite reluctant as well, giving a new company that has not traded for over 3 to 4 years a loan.
Well, no. There are two types of companies in real estate. In real estate, there is a limited liability company, which is ordinary company that does trade, and there is SPV. SPV is a real estate company for nothing more than real estate company. There's a selected mortgagees, banks that deal with SPVs, that give mortgages. They don't want to deal with limited liability companies. They want to deal with SPV that is new off the shelf. The newer you are, the chances of you getting a mortgage, because the property you're buying, they're not looking at your record. They're looking at the rental income. And remember, they'll look at the rental income. The ICR, is the ICR 145%? Is a hypothetical interest 5%? If it is, we'll give you a mortgage on that because they're looking at the property itself, not the history of the limited liability company.
Okay, so
the thing there again is that being a limited liability company, wouldn't they go into details? If it is a one director, if it is multiple directors, how does it work in that aspect? Because I think they're not just going to look only on the company, they're still going to look on the individual director, the person who is in charge of the company.
Well, look, remember, we're talking about buy to let. We're not talking about first time. You're not talking about residential home you're going to live in. We're not talking about that. We're talking about buy to let. You're buying a property to rent it out. It's therefore on its own a business transaction. So the bank would look at the rental income, no more. They look at the rental income and they look at the credit score of the directors. That is it. That is it. Now, if you're an existing company, the bank will be jittery because they don't want to give you a loan and find out that you owe a loan undisclosed and on unsecured loan to someone else. He exposes them. So in this SPV market, the bank, the mortgagees are really interested in new companies off the shelf. If you're an existing company, you're very unlikely to get a mortgage because it's got to be, so for every single property, just do an SPV for every property. So if you're buying a HMO, do an SPV on HMO. If you're buying a freehold on encumbered property, do an HMO. If you're buying a leasehold bed sits, do a SPV on each one of them separately.
Okay, just one. Let me come back in on that. First of all, what happens with the deposit if you're just off the shelf company and you probably just set up a bank account? Where do you generate the deposit of 25% or towards that property?
Well,
the director, I see you're gonna be relying on selling.
The director will bring the director of the shareholders. Yeah. Remember, it's a company, they're shareholders.
Okay, sorry. And again, if it's an existing company, I just want to know, you're saying it's gonna be difficult, but it's not ruled out.
It's not ruled out. But okay. Remember,
and sorry, before you answer, and does it mean, is it the same rule for if you're buying a commercial property or if you're buying a buy-to-let? What happens if you're looking for maybe a commercial investment,
Okay.
shops or B&B that is not residential per se?
Okay. If you're buying a commercial property, the SPV rule, it means you need a lender, a commercial lender. You know, there's some banks that give commercial mortgages and there's some banks that give residential mortgages, okay? For all intent and purposes, HMO is considered residential properties. But if you're buying offices, shops, petrol station, for example, and using an SPV, there's a special mortgage company that does that. Okay, and remember, if you're buying a commercial property, you have to bring at least 35% deposit, at least 35% deposit from the cash, and 65% will be from the mortgage company. Whether it's commercial or residential, every bank right now do not like to deal with existing companies. You know, if they give you, if you're an existing company and you're very lucky to get a mortgage, the interest rate will be very high because it's going to reflect the risk being taken by the bank. I mean, in 2017, the Prudential Regulatory Authority, which is an arm of the Bank of England, issued a circular to every banks, and it made it very clear that they have to look at the hypothetical situation of the individual. You know, if it's an individual, the ICR, the interest coverage ratio should be 145%. You then have to look at the experience. You have to look at the experience of the directors. How experienced are they? You know, so you look at the experience and then, you know, you then look at the risk being taken. In other words, are you buying, is it an SPV? If it's an SPV, your chances are better. If it's an existing company, you're very unlikely not to get the mortgage because of the risk exposing you. Don't ask me, it's just my experience. That's how it is at the moment.
Okay, Sam, can you speak now, Sam?
Can I just share a perspective here? Two
is that Sam speaking?
Yes, Sam, yeah.
Okay, Sam, go
on the mortgage, on the company lending for the SPV. And by the way, I believe for the SPV, when you do the buy to let, again, the director's loan, like the barrister said, would take care of the down payment. Then usually at times the directors would always be required to do a PG, a personal guarantee in most cases. I don't know if there's some cases you don't have to, but I think most cases you do. But I think there's a small gap there where in terms of the gentleman talking about an existing company, most of the times, the situations where an existing company is better than an SPV is mostly to do where the property being bought is part of your business. Say you're running a nursing home facility. Like in my case, we have a family business that runs nursing facilities. When it comes to buying an asset that you're going to be using for your business, you buy using your old company because the bank needs to see how you're being used. You're going to use that property, you're funding it from the business. But I think what Barrister is concentrating a lot more on cash flowing on people that are buying to invest as tenants to let. That's where you need to buy in a new SPV. But you could, if you're buying for your business, if you have a trading business, you want to buy a building and move into it as yourself to use for your business, that's when your older company becomes an advantage because the government wants to know that, or the bank needs to know that your business can actually sustain the mortgage repayments. Barrister, am I right in that?
You are. I seem to have missed you guys.
Yeah, yes. Okay. Yeah, I think I saw you went off power. Your power went off a bit.
I'm back now. Yes, I'm back.
The comment I was making is your SPV is excellent, spotless. When you're buying to let, at times you might require a personal guarantee, a PG from the directors when need. But I think what the gentleman is alluding to in terms of using an older company, that is only an advantage if you're buying a premises for an existing business, say like a nursing home company, or a care agency that wants to open a living facility. If you need to buy that home for your business, that's where creating an SPV might be a problem because you need to prove your track record of trading in the company and how your company trading might be required to sustain the repayments. I think maybe that's where the gentleman kept going on about an existing company.
Yes.
More if you're buying it as an owner-occupier or to use it for a particular business.
Well done, Sam. You're very, very correct. You see, in England, with this, you see, if you're a business and you're buying where your business is trading, it's as if you're treated as if you're a first-time buyer buying a place where you're going to live. It's a different rule that apply. But if you're buying to let, it's a different rules that apply. Yeah. So if you're buying to rent a property out, SPV. But if you're buying an existing place you're going to occupy as part of your company, then you can use an existing company. Even if you're buying a place you're going to occupy and you're using an existing company, the interest you're going to pay is going to be relatively high because banks have to take account of the risk that is involved in it. So think about it. I think what I normally do is if I have a building, if I have a building and I'm trading in this building, I want to buy it. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'll create an SPV to buy that building and I'll be a tenant of that SPV. And the rent I pay to that SPV, I will knock it off my tax, even though the tax to the SPV is 17%. So I'm saving 17% to SPV and I'm saving income tax here. And that savings is profit for me. Lawyers will go to heaven, don't worry. We will go to heaven, don't worry, don't panic.
Does anyone have another question for him, Barrister?
Just one question. How do we contact Barrister if we want to,
yes.
you know?
Yes, at the end of my seminar, I'll give my number. I want to take questions and then do something
from the WhatsApp forum.
Yeah?
Yes. Yes, I'll give, yes, on WhatsApp, and in any event, on this screen, towards the end, I'll give my details.
Thank you.
Okay, let me just quickly, I want to spend 2 minutes to deal with the 5 golden rules of wealth creation. What is those tricks that people use in wealth creation? The 5 golden rules, I'll spend 3 minutes to go through it. The first golden rule is called the psychological battle. If you want to invest in properties, you have to be willed. You have to have knowledge and desire. If you say, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, you'll never do it. You have to have that desire, that goal. You have to take risk. You know, the winner is that person that takes risk. Remember, as Nelson said, you know, in the 15th and 16th century, you know, the winner is that person that takes risks. So you have to be willed. You have to say, I want to do it. And that will gives you that ability to create wealth. The second is a 10% rule. Whatever you do, you have to say to yourself, this is the 10%. So if you're working, save at least 10%. If you're investing in properties, your yield should be at least 10%. If you're in remunerative work, you're salaried worker, you have to work in such a way that you're working extra time, and that extra time is your 10%. That 10% is your wealth creation because you're getting something over and above the desired effect. The third rule of wealth creation is multiple streams of income. Do not depend on one income. It's crazy. Warren Buffett says it. Warren Buffett says it so clearly that the great mind is that person that has 2 or more streams of income. So if one is blocked, the other is constant. So that's another rule of wealth creation. Pay down principle is the 4th rule of wealth creation. And that is that if you have a loan, try and pay it off. The quicker you pay off your loan, the more you create a space of equity. So the more you pay off your loan, the more the increase in your equity. And that increase in equity is your wealth creation. Remember, in the UK, we have 200 billion pounds in debt. The government is 1.9 trillion pounds in debt as at today because of the coronavirus. And this is the post-corona economics. So the way in which you could quickly sort out your loans, that space is your wealth creation and is known as sweat equity. My favorite rule is the principle of inverse benefit. That is the greatest rule, and it's in my book. It's an amazing rule in wealth creation, and I'll explain. The principle of inverse benefit says that try and invest in 2 or more countries with 2 or more currencies. So invest in 2 or more countries with 2 or more currencies. Now, if one currency devalues against the basket of currency, you sell your property in the stronger currency, and you go into the weaker currency and buy more properties. So it's called inverse, but it's inversely related. So buy properties where in areas that are inversely related, all right? So if the currency of one country is down, you sell your property in the country where the currency is stronger. I'll give an example. For example, we're buying a property at the moment in Nigeria. 6 months ago, the exchange rate was about 410. Today, it's about 520. So what do? I sell in the UK and get more Naira and buy more properties in a weaker currency country. And that principle is known as the principle of inverse benefit. So those are my 5 golden rules of wealth creation. You know, I've spoken for more than an hour, and I'm happy for any more questions and comments.
Barrister, sorry, I wanted to know, do you know, like, you know, you said in Nigeria, they give at least the maximum they give is about 15 million, okay?
Correct.
But I think one of the major challenges people face in Nigeria are the interest rates. Their interest rate is just too bad.
Yeah, if you're taking a mortgage from the National Housing Funds, the interest rate is about between 3 to 5%.
Okay.
Under the National Housing Funds. But the disadvantage there is the maximum loan you could get is 15 million. But if you go to a commercial bank, you could get up to 100 to 200 million. And the interest rate there is about between 20 to 30%, which is ridiculous. There's some banks that we deal with at the moment that have an interest rate of 10%. I don't want to mention their names. You have to come to me.
It's too much.
But 10% in Nigeria is not bad. I know the UK is about 3 to 4%, but listen, we're talking about Nigeria where the mortgage market is just growing. It's not as mature as we have here. So 10, 12% is not bad because your yield would cover it. Yes. Okay, so I think that brings, I don't know where Benson is. I think he's disappeared.
No, Benson is still around.
Okay, so that brings into conclusion.
I'm here.
My quick seminar, and I say that the small step you take in property investment is a giant step in wealth creation. And this is my contact. That's my phone number there, 0777 463 9435. And my email address is godwin@menvoltd.com. So you could contact me, and we're happy to be of assistance.
Okay. Thank you so much, Barrister Godwin Okri. Thank you so much. Tony, do you know if Mazi Ifeanyi is online?
I don't think I got a text message from him. Let me see if he has responded to my message, and because he's the next speaker in line. About just 1 second.
Okay, so thank you, Barrister Godwin, and he's left his details. If anybody wants to take it further, you can contact him directly. If you still have any questions, he's still here. You can
please do, because at the moment we have a list of repossessed properties at the moment that you could buy below market value, and this is the best time to buy when prices are low, when prices are dropping, when the economy is shrinking. That's the best time to buy because of the V-shaped economics. V-shaped economics is when it's V downwards, buy, because it's going to go all the way back up pretty quickly. I think someone is coming on. I'm not sure.
Okay, so if another question is, say for example that due to the limitations in being as an individual, not most of us will normally earn 100,000, and even if you earn 100,000, you can only get properties for about 450,000 because then you're putting down 25%. But if your eyes are on properties, you know, the likes of 600 to 700,000 mark, and you want to use the SPV or whatever to go for it, I'm assuming that there will be restrictions from you occupying that property, or would it be that since it's a separate company, it's none of by law a company is treated as a different individual from even owners. So if you buy it, one second, if you buy it through the SPV, and as if the rental income would be sufficient to quantify you being able to buy it, but you know you can afford to pay the mortgage and then you move in there. Do you think, would that be acceptable?
Well, the SPV is not to buy a property to live in. It's to buy a property to rent out. It's a buy to let. So
yeah, but if you want to be the tenant of your own of your own company, whereby you use the SPV and bought the property, and then instead of renting it out to a tenant,
yeah, you become the tenant.
Decide to become the tenant for the company and move in and pay the rent.
Correct.
Company. Would that be, would the bank put a restriction on the documentation to say, so long as you're the director of that company, you're restricted from moving in, which is normally what they would do if you're going for a buy-to-let mortgage?
I think you the way to do it is if you use two names, isn't it? The company, let's say company X is the limited company.
Yes.
And SPV is the SPV. Company X is treated as a separate entity from SPV, but you can't use the same name. Can you see? So you say company X occupies this property, company X is going to be the tenant, and SPV is buying this property. So SPV buy the property from company X. Even though they both have the same director, they are treated as two separate entities.
Okay, not quite there. What I'm saying is, yeah, I, for example, say I've seen this property, this repossessed property, and it's going for maybe 600,000 pounds. That's how much it's going for. And I want to live in that property.
Yes.
But if I go to a bank and say, give me mortgage for that property, they will say, okay, we need your income to be at least 150,000 first, right?
Correct.
If I'm buying to move in as a residential.
Yes.
Then I decide, okay, you know what? Let me buy through an SPV, whereby I'm setting up a company to buy that property so that the bank will not be assessing the income of the company, but instead assessing the rental income of a potential tenant.
Yes, the bank will not accept that because the bank.
I wanted to check with you.
No, the bank will not accept that. No. For every residential property, it's got to be an individual because companies cannot reside in a property. So every residential property to live in must be bought in the name of a human being. And that person then pays the mortgage, okay? If you want to buy a property to rent out, that's totally different. So SPV only applies, or companies only apply to buy to let.
Okay, then just a quick one, just to weigh in onto that argument. I'm quite liking that that Malcolm. I like your train of thought, but I mean that is when you state the intent from the outset. But what about if someone went in? So I'm taking now. I'm Malcolm. He's X. I'm X plus one, and I buy a property in my limited company in Manchester, not hoping to live there. And I'm in London. I buy a property in a limited company, SPV in Manchester, and suddenly I have a contract to do in the media center and so forth. So I move up to Manchester. If I stay in there without my intention of buying was not for me to live it, my circumstances have changed. And I'm in Manchester now. My flat is vacant. I'm looking for a tenant and I need somewhere to live. Can I can I do a contract myself, or does that actually, am I excluded from being a tenant?
Right, that's going to be a breach of your mortgage terms.
Okay, so I must not live in there. I can look somewhere else. Okay.
You can't. The only way you could live there is to write to the bank within 28 days and get the consent to rent.
Okay.
Yeah, so the bank has to give you consent to rent. If not, it's going to be a breach, and that will lead to repossession, even though you're up to date with the mortgage. It's unfair, but that's how it is.
Okay. Malcolm, did I help your situation?
Yeah. That
to articulate, because I think I saw I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Can I come in here and say something? Sorry, I came in late. I didn't quite follow through the whole presentation, and I must say, from what I have heard so far, it seemed very interesting and well articulated so far.
Thank you.
You saying that under this program, this SPV, purchasing under SPV, and where the bank does the financial reference on the name of the director, new director, and then you acquire this property under company ABC belonging to Mr. Joe Blogg. And then Mr. Joe Blogg has another company called CDE Limited. Now, as a company, a company can rent a property on its own name for its use or for the use of its staff. Doesn't that work here? So from the analysis Malcolm have given, if he buys this property in his company A, and then he has another company rather than his name, because the loan, the amount has been, the reference was done on him to allow the bank to release the money to buy the property. But if he has another company, he could certainly rent the property.
I agree. I've already answered that.
Oh,
before
okay.
You came, I already answered that. The answer is yes. So, sorry, who's talking?
You can, the second company can rent this property without
That's
any
correct.
problem. And
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
The second company can, yes, that's correct. Because in the eyes of the law, they are treated as two separate companies.
Yeah.
But that first SPV cannot live in that place. It's unlawful. But the second company, yes, can.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the director cannot live in it.
No. You have to notify the lender.
Right.
Dobiko, is Mazi Fayinwosu in?
No, he's not here yet. Only at Bobiko.
Onye bata na afọ bụ John. Amahom no.
Yeah, boy on our phone.
Well, whilst you're doing that, I also like to say that a lot of university towns like Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, Nottingham, they are now inviting a lot of investors to come and invest in HMO because they've recognized that there's a shortage of residential properties in these university towns. So HMO is a big thing at the moment. It's a big, big thing. And as you know, with HMO, some local authorities have what's known as Article 4. Now, an Article 4 directive changes the law. Before Article 4, if you buy HMO, you could change the rooms and the dimension of the rooms and increase it and have more rooms and get more profit. But council have now niched into that, and they've introduced Article 4 directive, which now means that if you own an HMO and you want to change things, you have to get planning permission. You know, so if you're buying a HMO, just ask yourself if there's an Article 4 directive. That's very important. If you're buying a HMO of more than 5 people in that property, there's a mandatory requirement to get a license. So you have to get a license. It costs £1,000 to get a license. And once you have a license, the license lasts for 5 years, okay? And with that 5 years, you have a license and you could rent out your properties to students Imagine 3 rooms of £500 or £600 per room per month. That's a lot of money. So HMO is a fantastic way to raise funds. A great way. There's a special website for HMO. There's a website just for HMO. I've given my details, and once you register with us, we send you the website. And good HMOs, you buy it below market value, create more rooms, and just rent it out to students. And just make sure you're in a student area. Great way to raise funds.
Yeah, what you've just said now, because actually I live in Liverpool, okay. And for the past 5 years now, we've seen massive influx of so many companies like that, you know, because I think the power of London in terms of student and every other thing has reduced drastically.
Yes, yes.
And I see when I go to Sutton Kirch, where the auction house, you will see a lot of people selling up their houses in London and come down this way with their profit and every other thing, and they can buy 2-3 houses with it.
Yes, yeah.
Investing in properties, you see, and actually everything is now creeping up. Previously here, you can rent a 3-bedroom house for you know, about £350–400, but now it's gone way up to £650, heading to £700.
Yeah, let me tell you about.
Yeah?
Yes, let me tell you about the Liverpool market. The Liverpool market is divided into 3 sections. There is Anfield. Anfield is L4 and L6. There's Kensington, and there's the north of Liverpool. So if you're buying in Anfield, like L4, L6 in Liverpool, you're paying for a 2-bedroom freehold property, you're paying £45,000 to £50,000, and the average rent is about between 400 and 450. So you're getting a yield of about 11%. Okay, so Liverpool is a good. There's some part of Liverpool that I would avoid. The north, you know, towards Everton, between Everton and Liverpool, the L4 area between the postcode L4 between Liverpool and Everton. That part is a rundown part. I'll stay away from it. But the south, the northern.
Let me correct you. Everton is in Liverpool, so don't make that mistake. Everton is just an area.
No. Anfield, between Anfield and Everton.
Anfield. If you come to these places you are talking of now, you will run away because they have all new buildings now throughout. Just close to the stadium is the joint between Anfield and Everton. You can't even get a place there again.
Well, if you look in L4 in the Anfield area, you could still get a property for £40,000. I've just did a transaction.
Yes, I know. No, I understand. I know very well. You know, Anfield is divided. You know, the part of L4 in Anfield is very minimal because L4 is being divided between Anfield and Everton.
Everton, yeah, but also even there's some part of L6 which is also Anfield.
Yes, most Anfield are L6. Most Anfield are L6, yes. And in Kensington is L6.
L6 too. Well, exactly. But I prefer
these places we are talking of are good rental places for students.
Fantastic rentals. That's what I'm saying to you.
To the town.
Yeah, because I do a lot of HMOs. I've done 2 HMOs in the Kensington area just before you get to the McDonald's. So I'm just saying that even in Liverpool, you know, there's some part of Liverpool I'll stay away from my experience. I mean, I have 15 years experience, all this part, from Sheffield, Leeds, Liverpool. I know this part, you know. So those parts, if you want to buy below market value, would be great, but you have to think of the area because some of those places are high crime areas. You buy it, you do it up, and thugs go in and they rip up all the metals. So you've got to think of those areas very, very carefully.
Great discussion, gents. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm trying to explain to you, I don't know when you visited Liverpool last anyway, but those areas you're talking of now, they are more or less crime free. You understand? Because there was what was set up by the council. You get a house for £1 anyway, but they stopped that program now. So it made a lot of people make purchases there, but you have to live in there. You have to do the house up and live in there. So because of that now, in fact, Liverpool now, during those times that you were talking about, is you are 100% correct, but it doesn't exist anymore now because there is so much influx of foreigners and so many people from different places to Liverpool that you can't even find houses again, empty houses again.
I can't. Wow, great discussion, Charles. Being an Arsenal fan, I really can't say much about how Liverpool is doing so well. But sticking back to property, you guys, you mentioned the little elephant in the house about students. With COVID, Cambridge University just confirmed most of next year will be online. Quite a few universities are still to make a statement. I know we're looking at wealth creation. When you're creating wealth, you look long-term, not short-term, but short-term challenges can be challenges nonetheless. But in the next year, how do you see COVID and student accommodation? What do you think the challenges are? And how can people get around it?
Well, I think student accommodation will still exist because there's still going to be traditional universities with traditional.
In the short term, like for next year, or the next academic year, particular.
Well, yes, I mean, because of COVID, we've all now created new ways of communicating. Look, we're speaking on Zoom. So what is it to say that you can't lecture on Zoom now? And people will stay in their different houses without having to have a hall of residence. But look, it still is going to be an instructive university where tutorials will be taking place physically, because people would have to physically see you. And for example, if you're doing an engineering course, or if you're doing a chemical course, you have to come to the laboratory. You have to do. So there's still going to be students that would need HMO.
Yeah.
Okay, so it will be a temporary problem. It's still going to be too long term. Okay.
I think it's a temporary thing, but it's not going to be long term. What I think will be long term would be in the commercial world where people go to central London to work. I think that will now change because people will now want to work from home. That might change.
Absolutely.
That might change.
No, the commercial world, COVID would change it completely, especially valuations.
Totally.
What would be left? I've said in quite a few seminars I've had, even this week I had about 2. I keep saying residential is a temporary problem. The government is pouring in, they're printing money every day to hold that up. But commercial, no one can help it. It's just gonna be who comes back from the lockdown. The restaurants, you don't know which one's gonna come back. But that could be an opportunity for residential guys on secondary precincts to actually repurpose some of the shops into residential on some of the smaller high streets. So it's going to be an opportunity definitely for investors.
I totally agree with you, and I like your way of thinking. Of course,
that's very well taken. Yeah, coming from you, yes.
Okay, Barrister, I just want to ask you, since you mentioned a few things about Nigerian market, for us diasporans, if we are looking to make investments in Nigeria, do you have the network in terms of those that wish to raise their mortgages from UK here rather than from Nigerian bank? Because I know have set up some mortgage deals where they're specifically designed for diaspora based individuals who wants to invest in Nigeria. And what are the benefits and implications of doing it through banks here, be it Nigerian banks set up here, or going back home to arrange that kind of thing?
Okay, your question is in 2 parts. First of all, are there banks that could give you mortgage here to buy in Nigeria? The answer is yes. I've got 2 banks on our books, Nigerian banks, that will give you mortgage here. But the way they will give you the mortgage is they want you to have a property here. So they will refinance your property. They will remortgage the property, put a charge on the property here and then give you that money, and then you could then take that money to Nigeria and buy in Nigeria with a very strong, coming from a strong currency. Remember inverse benefit? So you're coming from a strong currency into Nigeria. So the answer is yes, but you have to pay it back. So the refinance will be as if they're giving you a mortgage to buy property here. So the rental income from Nigeria, you then use it to service your mortgage repayment here. So the mortgage repayment will be here, but the money is given to you equivalent in Nigeria to buy in Nigeria. The advantage there is that the interest rate, remember the base rate in England is 0.25. So the advantage is you're paying interest rate at 2% here to buy a property in Nigeria where the interest rate is high. So it's a great advantage. The disadvantage is that you have to pay it back. So your rental income. So if the rental income in Nigeria is low, as opposed to if you're renting here, then you have to make up the difference from your pocket. So it's got the benefit of both worlds. So the answer is yes. There are banks that will deal with that will give you a mortgage here, and you could buy in Nigeria. Yes.
And also a follow-up question on that. Would you need to set up an escrow account to get into such transaction, or would you use your normal UK current account? You
use your normal account here. You use a normal account for the monies to be paid in. But you will need to go to Nigeria and open an account in Nigeria. That's so easy to do. That's really easy to do. So most of you will have an account in Nigeria anyway. So the money will be paid to you in your account in Nigeria from your investment here in the UK. And we also, because of my TV show that I'm doing at the moment, we've had links with some Nigerian banks who would also give mortgages to Nigerians in the UK to come and buy property in Nigeria. They'll give you a mortgage with the same interest rate you will have in the UK, 2 or 3%. But you have to be a diaspora and you have to be in a certain job. Like you have to be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, a certain category of jobs they want you to be. And they need proof of that and proof of income. And they will need a valuation of the property you're buying in Nigeria and the letter of acceptance of the seller in Nigeria. Once you have that, they'll give you the mortgage with the same interest rate in England, even though you're buying in Nigeria.
And where would the lien be attached, or the mortgage? Would it be attached on your asset here or the one in Nigeria?
It will be attached in the one in Nigeria.
Not in the one you're
not in the UK.
UK.
So you can have
sorry, I got information from Maz Ifeanyi, so he's having internet problem for connectivity.
Okay.
Connecting from Nigeria, so he's having an internet connection problem. He said he's gone through a series of networks now to see if he can come in, but he's still finding it difficult. I just put.
Okay.
But he's still trying.
Okay. So whilst we're on this, let me say one or two things about first-time buyers. I don't know if anyone is a first-time buyer. Are there any first-time buyers?
Looks like it's
no.
Is there any? Okay. If there isn't any, I can ask you about Nigerian properties actually.
Yes, yes.
Oh, you got one, okay.
Sorry, is there a question?
Is there a first-time buyer?
Yes, there is a first-time buyer.
Oh yeah, okay. Then you're gone.
Okay, right. If you're a first-time buyer, like I said earlier, the government would give you. There's a help to buy scheme, where the government would give you a certain percentage for every savings that you make. So if you save, for every savings, the government would match your savings for you to buy properties, because they're trying to encourage first-time buyers to own their own property. But you cannot rent it out. It has to be a place where you're going to live. And for stamp duty, if you're a first-time buyer, the stamp duty you pay is 0 stamp duty up to £300,000. So if the property price you're buying is £300,000, you pay 0 stamp duty. If you're not a first-time buyer, you pay 5%. So you pay 3% and 5%. If you're a first-time buyer, you pay absolutely nothing, because you're the government's darling. They want to encourage you to climb the property ladder.
Okay, a question on that quickly. If you've owned your properties, but it's all in your name, and your wife doesn't actually own a property, can she be a first-time buyer, or would
No,
they
she's
look at it?
not.
No.
She's not a first-time buyer by reason of the husband being a seasoned investor.
What about in a situation whereby, for that first time buy, you allow your wife to buy, or you just buy it in your name without her being inside?
Yeah, even if she's not a joint owner of that property, the mere fact that it's in the husband's name alone means that the wife is not a first-time buyer.
What about, okay, what about if you didn't tell the bank that about your marital status before buying and the rest? Or probably your marital status changed?
That's a breach of the law. You have to tell them the whole thing. If they find out, that's a breach of your mortgage. That could lead to repossession. Even though you're paying your mortgage, that's a misrepresentation to the bank.
Okay, what about a situation whereby, yes, during that first purchase on your name, you are married, and later on you divorced, or you are no more living together? Not that you're divorced, but you are not living together again.
Okay. If you're separated and you have a deed of separation, then she will be a first-time buyer.
Mm.
But if you lie that you're separated, and then eventually comes out that you're not separated, that is misrepresentation. And it's also—
No, that misrepresentation, barrister, it will be very, very difficult for you to— that one is the last thing bank can ever prove to you. Because I know people, people in this country, more—
Sam, are you there? Sam, are you listening to this?
Yeah, well, I wasn't, so I'm not involved in the conspiracy. I'm joking. Anyway. I'm joking.
They come together and go off, or is they are off and on all the time anyway? So how are you going to determine that?
It's a tricky one. I don't know. I mean, you need a marriage counselor for that. But I think that— I think
okay. Back to Nigerian property, which I was really looking forward to the guy to talk about Anambra, but without him here, the tenancies in Nigeria, rentals are normally paid in like year or 2 years. Has that changed? Because it makes it quite challenging to get tenants. Do we know if that has changed?
It's still the same. It's still the same. It's still a yearly tenancy paid in advance. It hasn't changed. We have a number of property at the moment in Lekki, and we are building a number of flats in Lekki 2 at the moment. And there's always going to be tenants, insofar as your rent is not exorbitant, because the average wage in Nigeria is 30,000 naira per month. That is nothing. So if your rent is high, nobody would rent it. It's not because they don't want to, because there's 17 million housing shortfall in Nigeria, so they need houses. It's not because of that. It's just that they can't afford it.
Yeah, because the I made a startup business. I normally attend the Real Estate Africa Invest every year in Lagos, in the hotel. But I made a startup company. I think last year or year before last, they were looking at creating almost like a rental guarantee company where young people can go to them, and then they'll be like a guarantor. You get like an insurance policy, so you can pay monthly rents to landlords. Do you know, have they launched on the market at all?
That has not launched. The reason is because Nigeria does not have a proper land registration system. So you're unable to identify true ownership of land. And because of that, there's suspicion. Because if you go and rent a place, someone who is not owner of that property rents it out, there's a real risk in giving that kind of security. So that has put spanner in the works. Also, Sam, another thing why that is not kicked off yet is because of the inability to have a good reference agency. Here in England, we could reference the tenants.
Yeah.
You could reference the tenants. In Nigeria, they can't. And
exactly.
So
that was my first soft spot to her is how do you reference? How do you know someone is who they say they are? I think that for me was the weakest link I picked up.
Yes.
When...
Malcolm, there's something that Menvo Limited is trying to do. Sam, there's something we're trying to do in Nigeria right now. Menvo Limited is trying to create a mortgage system in Nigeria where we're going to give mortgages to people to buy properties just in the Lekki area. We're not going anywhere else, just in the Lekki area. And the interest is 2.5%.
Okay.
5%.
2.5%.
2.5%.
Wow.
Correct.
That's great. So
That
it
is
will
awesome.
it will not be just be Lekki, but it will probably be some estates that you approve of, right? Not all of them.
Yeah, it'll be a state that we prove of, and it will be such that
and
the seller must be registered with the land registry. If they're not registered, we're not giving a mortgage. So we're going to be granting mortgages 2.5%. Lekki 1, Lekki 2, Chevron. We're not going to adjust too far. VGC, Chevron, Orchid, Ikate. All of those axes in Lekki, we're going to cover it. So
around the monastery
can I
road
ask you a
area.
question? Given that we are trying to arrange, these wealth opportunities to acquire properties in Anambra State, would your company then be able to do something, bespoke for Anambra State, even if you have to choose which area in Anambra State, and offer such facilities for people that want to invest? That's one question. Second question, if someone were to acquire a 2 or 3 story building and decide to do short leases of individual flats, maybe for 10-year leases. One, is it legally allowed? And secondly, would you fund mortgages on that? Say someone in UK says, okay, I've built a 2-story building. I say, okay, I want to give you a flat within that 2-story building for 10 years. You can rent it out, or a family member can stay there. But after 10 years, I will automatically get the property back.
Right. Okay.
Will you fund the mortgage on that?
Okay. That's not a mortgage at all, because mortgages are not going to give, mortgages don't give leases below, with 10 years is too low. It has to be like 65, 70 years. Mortgages banks don't give mortgages, or we won't give mortgages below 50 or 60 years.
But we do mortgage 25 years here. So why wouldn't you do?
No. The term of the lease must be at least 60 years.
Right.
Wow.
Not the mortgage, but the term of the lease must be at least 60 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can't take that risk, because that's not a mortgage, that's just that. So the answer is no. But if it's a proper freehold property that you want to sell in Anambra, Anambra is not a place that we deal with. But if it's a great area, we could send evaluation, value the property, look at the yield, make sure that the owner has been registered in the land registry or has governor's consent or excision. Anything short of that, it won't be something we could deal with.
I think Mazifa Inwosu is around now.
Okay.
Okay, so you've answered the first question. If you just finish answering the second question, I know somebody, DMG, was also looking to ask a question.
Yes,
if you can answer that, then if you kindly close your screen so that Mazi can then have the focal point for his own.
Okay, so I thought I've answered it, that for the list is too short.
And the one of packaging a deal in Anambra, you have, I think you do, yes, you have answered it as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Barrister. DMG, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, DMJ, we're located in the UK, in Surrey. We also have our sister company, which we set up in Nigeria, ready and waiting for all this, what we're all talking about, trying diasporans doing things back home. Very, very delighted to be on this, Zoom from the invite from Sam, who attended our Zoom earlier on. I'm a valuer as well, surveyor and valuer. So I want to know a little bit more of the valuation, how that works in Nigeria. Is it similar to here? Or is it, is it something that needs to be developed?
Well, no, the valuation is the same principle that you have in the UK. You could do a comps, you could do comparables, or you could do, if it's a commercial property, you could work on the yield. So it's the same thing here, diameters and all the rest of it. Yeah, so
but
you would do very well in Nigeria.
Yeah, but the things, when we do comps here, we basically base it on the land registry. So you was talking about earlier on about land registry, and I wasn't sure how how well organized that is in terms of what you're saying in terms of referencing.
You see, it is very tricky in Nigeria because each street have its own valuation. You could be in one street and it's £200,000, and the other street is £150,000, just for argument's sake. So what valuers do is they value according to street, not with the land registry. So in one street may have 4-bedroom property and another one will have 3-bedroom. So they'll look at similar 4-bedroom on that street and do a comps on that street. They don't have the benefit of us having a land registry, do a land registry search, see what the property is and work it out that way. We don't have that.
Okay. And in terms of, are they dealing with current information, or is it the property could have sold in that street a year ago? How are they approaching that then in terms of getting a more realistic open market valuation?
I think how much a house is sold is very well known in Nigeria. So if you go to the street, they will tell you. So it's basically word of mouth. If you're lucky, you could go to the land registry, but the figures you get in the land registry are inaccurate, because what they do is they underscore, they undervalue the amount for stamp duty purposes. So your property worth 60 million, they will say they bought it for 20 million so that they pay low stamp duty. So if you do the comps, it's just going to be out. So, but it's a rule of thumb. People tend to know what prices are. For example, in Lekki, if in Lekki 2, in Agungi, I don't know how well you know Lagos.
I've been there to Lagos Island, but I haven't been for a long time.
Okay.
Correct. In fact, we're supposed to go to this April, but Corona hit and that was it. Okay.
All right. So in Lagos, every part of Lagos have their own prices, and you just tend to know by going to the area. So that's a good part, but not the land registry. It's a no-no.
Okay. All right. And you mentioned that one would do well in valuation. What makes you say that?
I think with your British experience, the banks would take you seriously, because the CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria, has issued a circular against every single bank in Nigeria that their loan to deposit must be 65%. So in other words, for every £100 that they earn, they have to lend out £65. And so the banks are now required to lend out monies to homeowners, and the banks are now looking for credible valuer that will be on the panel because of the rush of these loans. So you're going to have a huge demand by reason of this circular. The answer is absolutely.
Okay. Well, I just also want to know, how can I join this group? Is it a WhatsApp group? Or?
Well, Malcolm has just invited me as a keynote speaker today. But if you want my details, Benson has got it. And I could take any questions and help you out in Nigeria when you're there.
Yeah, well, I'm from River State, so anything that goes on in like Igbo land, as well as Potako and all that, I'm always keen to know. I've got lots of friends from Anambra and from Imo and, Onisha, places like that. So I just wondered if it's a WhatsApp group, it'd be nice to join it as well, and so that you can get to know people, like-minded people. So
Benson, I think
DMG, thank you very much. We will pick up on that. I've already messaged you on WhatsApp. So we're gonna go straight to Mazi Ifeanyi Nwosu, And Barrister, once again, thank you immensely for your time, for your presentation. It has been very professional.
Thank you.
I've learned quite a lot. You know, you'd be surprised when you think you know stuff, and then suddenly you find that you learn every day. And what I've learned today has been very, very, very useful. You know, there is this saying that the skill set without the mindset will leave you upset. All right? So if you don't risk anything, you risk everything. So on that note, I would want us to really, I know Israel is raising
up his hands. Yes, Israel raised up his hand.
Let's get that quickly, and I'm really keen for time so that we can get Mazi to you know, tell us about Anambra State, so we can wrap up. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for accepting that. Thank you, Barrister. I've really enjoyed myself. My only thing is I'm not Igbo, so can we do things in the language everybody understands? I'm also keen to join the group, even despite the fact that I'm not Igbo if I'm allowed. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's now, Barrister, if you can come off your screen because you're viewing your screen.
Okay.
Thank you. So we are back to our normal screen, and then we welcome Onyije n'onwe ya, Mazi Ifeanyi Nwosu, to give us the presentation. Thank you.
Mazi Onokwe? Onyije?
Yeah, he's trying to connect.
You have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Hello, Onyije.
I think he's having technical problems. As I can see, he was trying to connect his audio, but let's give him a little bit more, like few seconds or a few minutes. If he couldn't connect, then we will have to leave it. Okay.
Benson.
Yeah.
I'm gonna step out a bit. Okay, yeah, continues, yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, Onyije is now on, yeah. I can see.
Okay.
Mazi, can you hear us?
Okay.
His microphone is not connected. Onyije, you have to unmute yourself. Check, go to man on mute. Benson, if it's
I'm not on a mute. I'm not on a mute. Okay.
Is everything okay?
You know, Nigeria issue.
Based in Nigeria, so
once there is rain, then you are bound to be left out.
Okay. Well, whilst we're waiting,
yeah. Carry on. Yeah? I need to attend to another meeting.
All right, no worries. Now,
Thank you.
Okay, but Benson, I want to say one or two things about our TV show.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. We're looking to round up very soon. So if you just say what you need to say. So
yes, there is the Okri Property Show, where we're going to be talking about everything properties. Initially, we showed in Nigeria for the first quarter, from January to April. We've now signed up with another TV channel called Yanga TV. They're on Sky 186. And we're starting on the 3rd of July, where we're going to cover all things properties. So what I'm going to be doing is, for the second season, we're going to do an episode called Investing in the Anambra Property Market. So anyone who invests in Anambra or wants to invest will be one of the participants of our film. We've started filming already. One of my presenters is here, Doreen. Doreen, say hello quickly. Speak.
Myself. Good evening, everybody. Hello.
Yes, that's Doreen. Say a bit about who you are and what you do.
Right, my name's Doreen Thompson. I'm one of the presenters on the Okri Property Show, and I'm here tonight doing my homework and research to hone my skills. And I also actually work in local government and also in accessing accommodation, really, for the homeless. So that's also another area of interest for me. And I'm also an aspiring investor. And looking at the information we've had tonight, it's been absolutely amazing to be able to, you know, when different customers come to you with different problems, to be able to have this information for their scenarios, because there's so many different circumstances for different clients. And here I've learned so many different options in terms of accessing investment. So it's been absolutely amazing for me. Absolutely amazing. Thank you. Thank you for putting this on, Mr. Benson. Thank you.
Well done.
Benson, thank you.
Yes, great. Where's Benson? Benson is disappeared.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm back.
Okay, very good. So that's Doreen Thompson. She's one of our presenters. And the first episode that's going to show on Friday, the 3rd of July, is titled Investing in the Jamaican Property Market. And Doreen Thompson is
wow,
she's fronting that. So yes, we're covering the whole of, you know, Jamaica, Nigeria, Anambra, Lagos, Abuja, you know, all things, United States of America, Chicago, New York. You know, property investment is the same everywhere. Buy below market value and get your yield. And so Doreen, thanks very much. That's great of you coming on. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. And unfortunately, due to the technical hitches with connecting from Nigeria, it looks like we are not going to be able to get through the presentation from Ifeanyi. So we would, on that note, thank everybody for making our time, given how busy. So multiple meetings as well today, and multiple meetings. So we thank everybody for attending. We would be looking to repeat the presentation at some point, just to make sure that other people who, for some unavoidable reason, could not log in, so they have the opportunity as well to hear.
Benson, sorry to interrupt. Would you know how many people attended today? Does it tell you?
Today we had 17.
17.
Okay. Had 17 participants. Okay. So we will arrange another session, and also if anybody wants further information, contact me, or also contact, if you have the contact number for Godwin, go ahead and contact him.
Before you sign off,
also it's better for like business.
Yes, sign off. Can I ask one more question?
She says she wants to.
Yeah, but no, it's yeah, okay, great. I said before you sign off, can I pop one question to Godwin, please?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Godwin. Very fantastic presentation. It's quite informative.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, have you heard about repossessed, or what? And what is your opinion on it? If you have
About what? Sorry.
Repossessed.
Repossessed. What's
It's a repossession list.
Oh, repo. Oh, repo.
Yeah, repo list. Yeah.
Put it on. Oh, repo list. I can. That's it. Better. Oh, you spoke so quickly. Like repo list. I'm like, what's repo list?
Yeah, repo list. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Possession list. Yes.
Yeah, possession list.
Yes.
Well, how about that? What does that mean? What comes to mind first? And is it a good place to go?
It's a good place to go because you're buying properties below market value. You're buying properties below market. Just 1 second, please. 1 second. Pastor Moiwa. Yes, I'm doing a Zoom. Yes, I'll call you in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Right. So I'm so sorry. So repo list is a good place to start. But if you let me just warn you, if you're doing a repo list, make sure you're buying the base price because the repo companies tend to pad it with their profit. Okay. And by the time you're buying with their padded profit, you're buying as if you're buying in a real estate company. You don't want that.
So how would you know?
They'll give you a disclosure. The law requires them to give you a disclosure. So you have to ask them, this price, is it inclusive of your profit? If the answer is yes, how much is your profit? And then do the maths. If it's 100,000 and the profit is 20,000, deduct the 20,000 and say, I'm going to make an offer of 80,000 pounds. Take it or leave it.
Very helpful. Thank you very much.
Yep. Very good. Okay.
Excellent. Onyije, are you able to speak? Mazi Ifeanyi.
Oh, great.
Awesome. Because go ahead.
Mgbede ọma nọ biko nọ ka nna ya biko nọ onye mmejọrọ nya gbaghalụ nọ biko nọ.
Please, some people for some reason don't understand Igbo, and obviously I know how passionate you are with Igbo language. Try and help out in using speaking on this occasion. Thank you very much.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mazi Ifeanyi Nwosu. First of all, I have to apologize. I had some challenges this evening here in Lagos, and I communicated our brother to explain a little bit before I just joined now. So I'm very, very sorry, please. Hello.
Yeah, carry on.
All right. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to join before now, at least to know where you stopped so far. Or should I just go ahead and...
Yes, just go ahead. We've done everything else we need to say. We're just about to round up. So just hit it up straight away on, acquisitions in Anambra. What do you have on offer? What are the deals there? And then we'll be able to sign up on that.
Okay. All right. Currently, I was endorsed as a brand ambassador of Rotec Energy Services Limited. Rotec Energy Services Limited is a real estate company based in Abuja, and the CEO of the company, Chief Augustine Agwejofor from Enugu, Anambra State. They signed a MOU with Anambra State government that was last year, 2019, for the company to move down to Anambra State to develop what they call Nkwele GRA Phase 1. Nkwele GRA, Nkwele is located in Anambra State, a few minutes after Ugidi Building Materials in Anambra State. And I think as the brand ambassador, I will talk about theirs. I hope I'm permitted.
Yes, you are. Carry on.
All right. So far, the company, they've been into the business of real estate, and by the grace of God, they've succeeded in building so many houses in Abuja where they're based. But presently, they've commenced work there in Anambra State, which I remember the last time I spoke with, or I sent you, the brother Okuko, the video clips of the deal the day it was signed with Anambra State Governor, the current governor of Anambra State, Chief Willie Obiano. So it's a place that I have visited in 2019, and I was there also in March before the lockdown. And not just for Anambra, rather people from different states, mostly in Anibo. I can't say that I've seen any Yoruba man that invested there, but mostly our people, they've been investing there because of what they've seen that the company is doing. It's not just that they are into real estate, but the government of Anambra State, they are partnering with them. And by the grace of God, they've succeeded in achieving, if I can say, let's say 40%, because for example, I was with them in November. We traveled to Dubai. They've been to so many countries to talk to our people about this. And so far, a lot of Igbo organizations in diaspora have subscribed, and some of them, they have commenced, though individual, they have commenced their buildings, and some have not commenced. And as it stands, it's going to be a place that people will be talking about in the next few months. They a plan in March 2020 for the governor of Anambra State to come and officially unveil the estate, but unfortunately, COVID-19 landed, so they've not been able to do it. But people are buying. What they are selling for now, the minimum square meter there is 500 square meters. I'm so sorry if I'm going out of track. Please put me right, because unfortunately I was unable to join before now.
Carry on.
Please.
Just do your bit. Don't worry about anything. Just say it as you planned it, and then that should be. If we have questions after,
All
we
right.
can ask you.
All right. Okay. The land has a C of O, and the minimum square meter there is 500 square meters, and nobody's allowed to build without the estate's approval, because they want everything to be in uniform, unlike some of our estates here in Nigeria. So you have to follow the rules, and another advantage is that the company, being company that has been into real estate before now, they have also all the, if I can say, all the materials. Let me say the major building materials one needs at the beginning, like blocks, granite, cement, all these things. They have companies that they are partnering with, that they are selling even far cheaper than what you can get outside, but you can as well buy from anywhere. So currently, people are building there, and plots there goes for 5 million naira, and it's 100% full payment option for now. Before, they had instrumental plan, but now it's no more. The promo, it's no more there. So it's a 100%. And after the COVID-19 lockdown, I believe the plan they have, because they've started the road, they are tiling the road from the main express down to the estate where it's located, and they are considering the cost and the way people are also building. I believe, according to the CEO of the company, that in the next few months after the official unveiling by the Anambra State governor, that the price will definitely get to 7.5 million naira. So I think let me just stop here for now. If there's any other question, then I can.
I have a question. I'm sorry to be the first one to ask. My question is, would the person be able to develop the land? Obviously, you mentioned that it has to be uniformed with the plan of that estate. Does that mean that you have to use their own developers to build on the land, or do you have to get the plan from them and build with your own developer, your own builders?
Oh, thank you very much. Two options. You can build with their own developer. You can as well bring yours, but under their own supervision, because they want to make sure that everything goes well.
Okay, so if you want to build using their own developers, do you have in place all the legal documentations that, assuming you may be having the need to pay instrumentally as they are building, like stage by stage, maybe foundation, then, first bit and second bit and all of that. Do you have all the structural plan in terms of the legal documentations whereby if things don't go to plan, say they are building, but not as the original agreement, where are the resolutions, guarantees, indemnities, whereby you can maybe recover your money back should they fail to fulfill their side of the agreement? And if you find yourself in trouble, maybe you've built halfway and you couldn't continue, is there any system in place to cater to for that? Because some people might get stuck, and given that the plan for the estate is that everything look the same, would they say to you, okay, because you're not able to finish, that building is now looking very awkward, they would want to buy back and sell to somebody else and maybe give you your money back? What is, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. The truth remains that in real estate business, the little I know, there is no developer that will not expect something like this. It happens. But whenever it happens, of course, in the agreement, there must be, everything must be well stated that in case, if something like this arises, for example, you can buy a plot of land from the estate, maybe 5 million naira today, and the next minute you want a refund. There is no how they can refund you your 5 million naira. Of course, in the agreement, everything will be well stated. You to know that maybe 10%, 1%, 2%, as the case may be. Something like this has to be in the agreement before you embark. Then regards about the person or the client having every document. But I want to get it right. You are talking about someone who is paying instrumental. If that's the case, I can't guarantee you or the person having the original documents, even when he or she has not finished the payments. So I don't know if this answers the question.
Okay, sorry. After this question, then everybody else can carry on. Sorry, I just want to get it off my chest, and then so I don't forget. So essentially,
Hello.
there are two things here. One is buying
Hello.
land. Yeah, can you hear me still? Yeah. So one is buying the land. Another thing is developing it to the standard of the uniform.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello, can you still hear me?
Hello.
Are you with us? Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So
Hello.
yeah, it looks like Ifeanyi cannot hear us again, and the question is for him.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I'm having some challenges.
Well, we
I'm
can
so
hear
sorry.
you. Can you hear us?
Oh.
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello? It's a tough one.
Let him go off the video and just use audio alone. That might be better.
Okay. Okay. If it's working for you without the video, maybe only the audio can work, then we can go with that, so long as you can hear us.
Hello.
No. Okay.
Yeah, try again. It looks like it.
Yeah, but Ifeanyi, can you hear me?
Hello.
No.
That's Nigeria.
Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, unless anybody else has anything else to share with us, it looks like he's not able to.
Okay. Can you reach him later with some questions I can raise?
Yes.
Can I raise that?
Yeah.
You make notes and then you can speak to him later, and perhaps can feed us back on that. Okay. The first question I have is, shall I go ahead, Malcolm?
Yeah. 1 second. Let me get. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
He said that each plot of land is the minimum size of each plot of land is 500 square meters.
Yeah.
Okay. That is the minimum size. So the assumption is that you could have a bigger plot. So if you're going for maybe a double plot, what what would be the price if you buy a double plot? For 750, for instance, for 750 square meters.
Okay.
Okay. The second point is, who are these developers?
Okay.
How long have they been in the industry? How long have they been doing this? Are they part of government, or they're just purely private entities?
Yeah.
And also, if you buy this land at 5 million or 7.5, whatever the figure is, and they give you C of O for your land, how long do you have before you start the development, or are you compelled as soon as you buy it to start developing it straight away? And just the final bit, he said that if you're paying instrumentally, you may know who the C of O. The C of O, who's holding that? That means, is that presume you are developing with the company. If you're doing it yourself, Once you pay for the land, do they give you your C of O, and that's closes the transaction with the company?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are just the basic. Where's the location of this land?
Unkwere, in Anambra State.
What is the distance from there to Oka?
Unkwere to Oka will be around 40 to 50 minutes drive.
No, in miles.
Yeah.
Not the drive.
Maybe 100 miles.
100 kilometers or mile, 100 miles.
100 miles or 150 miles.
It's not in Anambra State?
Yeah, in Anambra State.
Kilometer, not in miles.
Sorry?
Yes, Unkwere.
The
In
distance
Anambra State.
should be in kilometers. It's not, I think it's about 30 minutes drive.
30, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I would like to, if everybody is happy, I would like to bring this webinar to a close. You know, and again, once again, thank you everybody for participating. And then we will try and get some answers for some of the unanswered questions. Hopefully next time there might be better connection for someone dialing in from Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we appreciate
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I just have a question before you go, please. I got the information about this webinar through someone who is not an Igbo. So I want to know, is there any contact I'll be able to have in case of next
Well,
one?
the contact is 07 930
07, yeah?
Okay, let me start again. 07 930
Okay.
2022 50.
Excellent. Thank you.
And just one more. Could I have the number for Godwin, please? Because I didn't write it down in
I will
time.
send it to you on your WhatsApp. We've already connected, yeah?
Superb. Thank you very much, Benson.
No problem. All right, all the best. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.